Ever wondered how the choice of words can shape our understanding of the world around us? Well, that's where the fascinating field of discourse analysis comes into play. This qualitative analysis method focuses on the subjective underlying meaning of language in communication. It's not just about what is being said, but how it's said and the context in which it's being said. Imagine peeling back the layers of an onion, revealing deeper and deeper levels of meaning. That's discourse analysis for you. It's an essential tool for making informed decisions in research projects, as it provides a unique lens to interpret language within its social, cultural, political, and historical context. So, let's dive deep into the world of discourse analysis and see how it affects our everyday communication. So, what exactly is discourse analysis? Glad you asked. It's an approach that interprets language within its social, cultural, political, and historical context. Yes, you heard it right. We are not just looking at language as a mere collection of words, but as a complex system that carries meaning beyond the literal sense. It's about the why and how of language use and what this tells us about the people and societies using it. Now, you might ask, what's the scope of discourse analysis? Well, the scope is pretty wide. It can be applied to various data types. Maybe you're working with interview transcripts, or perhaps you're analyzing speeches or recordings. Discourse analysis has got you covered. It's a versatile method, adaptable to different kinds of research needs. And it's not just about dissecting language. It's about digging deeper into the underlying meanings, the nuances, the subtext. It's about understanding the power dynamics, the ideologies, and the beliefs that are communicated, consciously or unconsciously, through language. Discourse analysis also allows us to study both primary and secondary data. Primary data, like interviews or observations, give us first-hand insights into people's language use. Secondary data, like newspaper articles or public speeches, allow us to examine language in existing texts. So, whether you're doing fieldwork or library research, discourse analysis can be a useful tool in your research arsenal. But remember, discourse analysis is not just about the words on the page, it's about the context, the people, the society, and the culture in which these words are used. It's about understanding the bigger picture, the broader narrative. It's about making sense of the world through the lens of language. And that's what makes discourse analysis so fascinating. It's not just a research method, it's a way of looking at the world, a way of understanding people, societies, and cultures. It's a lens that brings into focus the subtle, the nuanced, the often overlooked aspects of language and communication. That's the basics of discourse analysis, but let's look at some real-life examples to make it more tangible. Now, let's bring discourse analysis to life with some examples. Imagine a researcher wanting to understand public perceptions of a government's immigration policy. They might collect data from various sources such as newspaper articles, social media posts, or interviews. By using discourse analysis, they would not just tally the number of times certain words are mentioned. Instead, they would dig deeper, examining the underlying narratives, the tone of the language, and the cultural or historical context in which the discourse is happening. Similarly, consider a linguist studying a historical speech. They would not be simply counting the frequency of certain phrases. They would be looking at the speaker's choice of words, the rhetorical devices used, and how these elements reflect the socio-political climate of the time. Those examples should give you a clearer picture of how discourse analysis works. Now, onto the different approaches in discourse analysis. Like any method, discourse analysis isn't one size fits all. Now, let's dive into the different approaches to discourse analysis. Firstly, we have the language and use approach. This focuses on the technical aspects of language, such as grammar and syntax. But it doesn't stop there. It digs deeper into how these details of language are used in specific contexts. For instance, how does a politician use pronouns in a speech to create a sense of unity or division? Or how do advertisers use adjectives to evoke certain emotions and reactions? This approach is all about the nitty-gritty of language and its use in real-life situations. Then we have the socio-political approach, also known as the social constructivist approach. This takes us into the philosophical roots of discourse analysis. It examines how language reflects power dynamics in society. How do people use language to exert influence, to maintain or challenge the status quo? What does a CEO's speech reveal about the power structure within a company? This approach is about peeling back the layers to reveal the power dynamics at play. Now, let's introduce you to critical discourse analysis, or CDA. This is a key socio-political approach inspired by the philosopher Michel Foucault. It focuses on the dynamics of power and how it's expressed through language. It's not just about who says what, but also who gets to decide what is said and how it's interpreted. For instance, in a courtroom, how does the language used by lawyers and judges shape the outcome of a case? CDA is about pulling back the curtain on the power dynamics that shape our discourse. Remember, these are just some of the approaches to discourse analysis. Each one offers a unique lens through which to analyze language and its context. Depending on your research question, you might choose one approach over another, or even blend multiple approaches together. Each approach has its strengths, but what are the overall strengths and weaknesses of discourse analysis? Let's move on to the next scene to find out. Every method has its pros and cons, and discourse analysis is no exception. So, what are the strengths of this method? Well, first off, discourse analysis is incredibly versatile. It can be applied to a wide range of data types. We're talking interviews, speeches, recordings, and more. It's not just about what's being said, but how it's being said, and in what context. This means that it can provide a rich, in-depth understanding of your data. But it's not just about versatility. Discourse analysis also has a unique ability to reveal nuances in language. It goes beyond merely counting words or identifying themes. Instead, it delves into the underlying meanings, the subtle implications, and the unspoken assumptions. It's like having a magnifying glass for language, allowing you to see the tiny details that might otherwise go unnoticed. Moreover, discourse analysis provides insights into social realities and power dynamics. It helps us understand how language shapes and is shaped by society. It can reveal how power is expressed and maintained through language, and how different groups may interpret the same words or phrases differently. However, like any method, discourse analysis is not without its challenges. One of the main ones is the need for interpretive expertise. You see, discourse analysis is not a simple, straightforward process. It requires a deep understanding of language, culture, and social dynamics. It's not just about knowing the words, but understanding their context and their implications. Another challenge is the subjectivity of data interpretation. Different researchers may interpret the same data in different ways. This can lead to differing conclusions and can make it difficult to compare results across studies. Finally, discourse analysis can be quite time-consuming. It involves a detailed line-by-line analysis of your data, which can take a lot of time and effort. But remember, good research is not a race. It's about taking the time to truly understand your data and draw meaningful conclusions. So when should you use discourse analysis? Let's find out. Knowing when to use a method is just as important as knowing how to use it. Discourse analysis is a highly versatile tool, but it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. It really shines when you're looking at social, political, or cultural phenomena. Are you exploring how power dynamics play out in the language of political speeches? Want to understand the cultural nuances in everyday conversation? Then discourse analysis may be the way to go. On the other hand, if you're studying something that doesn't involve a lot of language or communication, discourse analysis might not be the most relevant tool. Let's say you're researching the impact of climate on plant growth. In this case, you'd probably lean more towards quantitative methods and hard data rather than diving into the nuances of language. That sums up when to use discourse analysis. Now let's recap everything we've covered. So, what did we learn today about discourse analysis? Well, we started by defining discourse analysis as an approach that interprets language within its social, cultural, political, and historical context. We looked at different approaches, including the language in use approach and the socio-political approach, and even delved into the critical discourse analysis inspired by philosopher Michel Foucault. We also examined the versatility of discourse analysis, which allows it to incorporate a wide range of data types and reveal nuances and contextual factors in language. This, in turn, provides insights into social realities and power dynamics. However, we also noted some challenges, such as the need for interpretive expertise, the subjectivity of data interpretation, and the time-consuming nature of the process. Lastly, we discussed the appropriate use of discourse analysis, especially for research focused on social, political, or cultural phenomena and their communicative contexts. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more research tips and advice.